Hey everyone, so Usopp is set to get one of his all-time great moments in Wano. The arc so far, as we all know, has been pretty devoid of any meaningful Usopp moments. In fact, at many points, it's made Usopp look even worse and even more cowardly than usual. And what's interesting is that this is actually being played up even more during the climax of this battle, with everyone proudly proclaiming how they would welcome death if that is what it takes to achieve victory, with a sharp juxtaposition of Usopp wailing about how he doesn't want to die no matter what, something that he's been saying for several chapters now. But that's the thing, isn't it? The law of Usopp, as shown throughout the entire story, is that for every ounce of cowardice that he displays, there will always be an equal and opposite display of bravery. And with the amount that Usopp's cowardice has been played up this arc, we likely have a huge display of bravery around the corner, as I will be explaining today. So before we get into it, make sure to subscribe for more One Piece videos every week. And we also have to address something very quickly, which is that you are hungry and lazy. What do you want right now? You want delicious food delivered straight to your door that is already cooked for you. That's right, I'm talking about the sponsor for this video, Factor. You know I talk about HelloFresh a lot. Well, Factor is owned by HelloFresh, and it's basically the HelloFresh for people that don't want to cook anything at all, period. I'm not talking fast and easy meal prep, I'm saying no meal prep at all. There is zero stress, zero effort. You can get any meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, pre-prepared, straight to your door, and ready to eat in literally 2 minutes. That's faster than takeout and a lot healthier. Factor meals have premium ingredients that support wholesome eating, with plenty of meal plan options to fit what works best for you. Just yesterday for dinner, I got to enjoy some Romano and black pepper shrimp pasta, and it was delicious, and so far I've been loving the calorie smart plan I've been on that's been helping me eat healthier. If you want to try Factor, you can get $120 off using my code. Just head to go.factor75.com/Morge120 and use code Morge120 to get $120 off. Link in the description below. So that aside, let's look back at how Oda tends to write Usopp throughout the story. Because yes, Oda will always drop in little bits of cowardice for Usopp here and there in every arc. That is Usopp's thing after all. But in every arc that you can think of that really had a standout highlight moment of bravery or important storyline for Usopp, Oda tends to plant the seeds for that inevitable moment of bravery much earlier in the arc. As such, you can usually get an idea right from the beginning of what type of moment Usopp is going to have down the line. For example, in Alabasta, when Usopp has this amazing moment of bravery against the Mr. 4 duo, how exactly did it play out? Well, first Usopp realized he was too overwhelmed by opponents far stronger than he was, so he had no choice but to run, only to suddenly reveal that there are certain things where you cannot run and you must stand and fight, and that is when your friend's dreams are insulted. This moment was actually set up for Usopp all the way back in the beginning of the arc when he tells Chopper that it's okay to just do what you can and then run away whenever someone is too strong for you. This initial cowardly advice that he gave Chopper, that it's okay to run away when the enemy is too strong, was the setup for Usopp's moment of bravery at the climax when he gives Chopper new advice that in certain instances it's not okay to run no matter how strong the enemy is. And from then on, of course, Usopp absolutely shines and gets his big hero moment. Same thing with Enies Lobby, with Usopp's fears of being useless dead weight to the crew, the fears that he would no longer be able to keep up with them and would be left behind, being played up heavily in the first half of the storyline, all leading up to Usopp realizing that there are things that he can do that no one else can do, with his big moment being stepping up to save Robin when no one else could, and of course later on showing that even just the friendship he provides is invaluable as Usopp puts his life on the line to give Luffy the strength to defeat Lucci. Similarly, Dressrosa, you have Usopp in full coward mode throughout the early segments, tricking the Tontadas into believing that he is some sort of a hero, while Usopp continually plots his escape, fully intending to abandon them at the first opportunity. And of course, this is simply build up to Usopp's actual genuine heroic return, where he does genuinely risk his life to be the hero the Tontadas need. This is just a trend throughout One Piece. Usually whatever cowardice Oda is having Usopp suffer from early on, that's a clear setup for him actually showing us the reverse by the end in a grand act of bravery. Run from anyone you can't defeat? No, there are things you should never run from. I'm going to be useless dead weight for you all eventually? No, there are things that only I can do that no one else can. I'm not a hero, I'm a fraud? no, I'll actually be a hero if that's what they need. I mean, all of this just makes sense if all of Usopp's cowardly moments didn't get their eventual reversal in a grand moment of bravery, then Usopp would kind of just be a shitty character. It makes sense that Oda always does this sort of setup, knockdown approach with Usopp of putting forward a certain fear, and then having that fear be exactly what Usopp overcomes by the end of the arc. And along those lines, the more cowardly Usopp is painted out to be over the course of an arc, the more of a setup it is for Usopp to get something really great and brave by the end of the arc. Since otherwise, again, it would just paint Usopp out to be a really shitty character if he spends the entire arc crying and complaining and then gets nothing by the end. It's an almost inverse relationship, where the more Oda drags Usopp through the mud in the first half, the more Usopp is going to shine down the line. Like Dressrosa, with Usopp basically tricking all the Tontadas and preparing to throw them under the bus, was Usopp at his absolute worst, whereas Usopp by the end of the arc was a literal god. On the flip side, arcs like Drum Kingdom or Skypiea are pretty tame in terms of cowardice by Usopp's standards. Yes, he has his occasional standard moments of voicing fear, but it's not really played up or a big deal for most of the arc. And in turn, the small moments of bravery or resolve that he does get aren't really huge iconic moments either, because it's just not necessary for him for those arcs. These aren't really Usopp storylines that have some sort of setup with heavy cowardice that really needs to be overcome in a great display of bravery by the end. Obviously, it's not 100% cut and dry, this isn't math, but usually the more terrified and cowardly Usopp is early on, usually the bigger reversal we can expect to get by the end. Because the thing that we all need to remember is the whole point of Usopp's cowardice being heavily emphasized throughout a given arc is to make that moment where he is actually brave that much more powerful. Oda never just makes Usopp an annoying coward for a full arc for no reason. That would just be Oda shitting on his own character. So all that being said, with the Wano arc, we can look at two things. First of all, how cowardly has Usopp been painted as this arc? And second, is there a clear setup as to what his potential moment of bravery may be about? So I would say that Usopp has been painted as really, really cowardly over the course of this arc, as pretty much from start to finish, most of his standout dialogue is pretty much preaching the Bible of cowardice. First, talking about how he will spill the beans on his friends if he is captured, actually doubling down on that claim, then basically urging others in the alliance, first Nami and then the samurai, to basically just give up on any sense of honor and try to survive no matter what, because your life should supposedly be more precious than anything else. And now he's just really laying it on thick, with every panel of him recently just being him saying that he doesn't want to die no matter what. I think at this point, Usopp may as well put the words "I don't want to die" on a t-shirt and wear it 24/7. And all of this stands out especially because of the sharp contrast with pretty much everybody else in the alliance, as Wano features our protagonists at basically their most honorable, with Law talking constantly about how trust is everything, and no one in the alliance will betray each other no matter what. Nami putting her life on the line just to reiterate that she believes in Luffy no matter what. All the samurai repeatedly being shown to be completely ready to give up their lives for this fight. Usopp, in this arc, more than any other arc in One Piece, is made to stick out like a sore thumb. His dialogue is as cowardly as it's ever been. Maybe not quite as scummy as the early Dressrosa levels, but certainly as consistently cowardly as we've ever seen in a One Piece arc, and he's acting like this while everyone else is being so brave, so honorable, so noble. So if we're looking at the law of Usopp, I would say just the amount of cowardice Oda is building up for him for the majority of the arc so far probably warrants some serious bravery to bring his character back into balance. Again, there are arcs that are relatively tame for Usopp where he doesn't get some shining moment, but those are also pretty much always arcs where his cowardice is not played up that much in the first place either. It's hard to imagine an arc where Oda makes Usopp out to act this pathetically for such a prolonged period of time, without something big for him being saved for the end. Although it is very, very important to acknowledge a huge possibility that may make this an exception and a different scenario from all other prior arcs, which is that the next One Piece arc is very possibly Elbaf. Elbaf is of course an arc that we all rightfully expect to be extremely important for Usopp, maybe the most important Usopp arc in One Piece history. As such, there is this new possibility that for the first time, Usopp may not have his extreme cowardice balanced out in Wano, but rather this whole arc may be a setup for him to have a huge display of bravery in Elbaf instead. While I think that's certainly possible, I personally believe that Usopp is set to get something particularly major within the Wano arc itself, because of the type of setup that his cowardice seems to suggest. As I said, we always see that Usopp's specific fears early on in the story arc are exactly the setup for what he will have to overcome in the end. And I do believe the Wano arc has established a clear setup of what that potential moment of bravery for Usopp could entail. And looking at the setup, it does seem to make far more sense thematically for it to happen in Wano than in a future arc like Elbaf. Usopp's fears this arc seem to be, firstly, being taken captive and tortured. This is something I actually broke down in a video a couple years ago that you can check out after this, link above my head. And second is his fear of death. We can see Usopp saying multiple times that he would spill the beans immediately if he were to be taken captive and essentially sell out the alliance without a second thought. And even this little setup for him was arguably foreshadowed even earlier in the storyline all the way back in Zou, when Usopp was the Straw Hat who specifically was the most surprised at the Minks revealing that they had been protecting Raizo all this time despite being tortured, with Usopp's reaction to the reveal being the one that Oda highlighted the most. You could even see hints of this when Ulti has Nami captive and Usopp is urging Nami to say whatever it takes to survive. So that is fear number one that has been recurring throughout this arc, being taken captive and tortured, with Usopp claiming that he would sell out his friends immediately if required. The second fear, of death, has been highlighted more and more recently, again with the Nami scene, but really repeatedly being reiterated by Usopp throughout the last dozen or so chapters, that he does not want to die, he values life above all else, all he cares about is surviving, etc, etc. So fear number two that has been recurring this arc is death, with Usopp claiming that he values his life above anything else. So why do I think that those two fears, of being taken captive / tortured, and of dying in general, will be addressed in this arc rather than Elbaf? Well, because those two ideas go to themes that are very clearly tied to the Wano arc specifically. The importance of trust and loyalty in the alliance has been a huge theme of Wano, really a huge theme throughout this entire storyline to defeat Kaido, starting all the way in Punk Hazard, carried on through Zou with the aforementioned Raizo Dono is safe scene, the importance of not selling out your friends no matter what the enemy does to you. That theme has been so important to this storyline specifically. And of course, on top of that, the theme of death has been huge in Wano specifically. Especially as we are approaching the conclusion to Act 3, Wano is most certainly about death, even if we don't yet know the full thematic message behind it. So these two fears of Usopp's, first, the fear of being taken captive and tortured, that goes directly to this key theme of the storyline of never selling out your friends, and second, the fear of death, goes directly to the arc's theme of death. These two fears of Usopp's are both directly tied to what the Wano arc specifically is about. If Usopp has to overcome his fear of being taken captive and being tortured, thereby proving his loyalty to his friends, proving that he would never sell out his friends, proving that that is the key to victory like Law says, then that perfectly meshes with the ideas of the Wano arc. If Usopp has to overcome his fear of death and actually honorably put something above his own life, then that too plays directly into one of the key ideas of the Wano arc. As such, while I do believe it's entirely possible that Oda could set up a glaring, recurring fear for Usopp that would be resolved in a future arc rather than the current arc, I do not think that is the case here, as the specific type of fears that are consuming Usopp in the Wano arc are directly tied to the very ideas that this storyline is about. As such, I think it is far more likely that these flaws of Usopp that are being played up in this arc are going to be addressed in this same arc. And lastly, the simple reason I think it is less likely that these will spill over to Elbaf or something else is simply because it does look like Wano, when it resolves, however it resolves, it is being built up to be the grandest and most meaningful victory that the Straw Hats have ever had, possibly the greatest party and celebration the Straw Hats have ever had. I personally have a hard time imagining this arc concluding and Usopp celebrating with everyone else as though he actually did something, getting a new bounty as though he earned it in any way, basically acting like one of the big Straw Hat heroes who saved Wano, when from start to finish he showed less resolve than even some random fodder samurai. Because in Usopp's own words, going back to the start of the story, he himself simply could not laugh and celebrate with everyone else knowing that he did not step up in the same way that they all did. So all of this leads me to believe that we are set up not only for a big Usopp moment in Wano, but very possibly one of the greatest Usopp moments in the entire series. And if you enjoyed this video, if you have any idea of what that moment may be, then definitely let me know in the comments below, and like and subscribe for more videos like this.